we can always throw it away if it sucks, right?
Yes.
Okay. So as my topic tonight, I have chosen the ox herding pictures, the 10 ox herding pictures. And I thought that would be kind of an appropriate thing, what with the upcoming Lunar New Year that's going to be the year of the ox. So I thought it kind of tied in there. And so the ox herding pictures are kind of this analogy for the process of our practice, you know, to enlightenment. And some of the notes I have here that I'm going to be reading are from an article that appeared in Tricycle. I failed to write down what month, what year, but this article was written by Martine Batchelor, but I'm only going to be using some of this to discuss. Martine Batchelor is the wife of Stephen Batchelor, who wrote Confessions of a Buddhist Atheist and Buddhism Without Beliefs. So I believe she's written a book of her own too. So let me find the pictures and I'll go through them. Okay, so the first one, let me see here. There. Okay. So in the first picture, we have in search of the ox in the pasture of the world. And by the way, these pictures were not part of the Martine Batchelor article. I got these from somewhere else. So this is going to be kind of a hodgepodge of quotes here. In the pasture of the world, I endlessly push aside the tall grasses in search of the ox, following unnamed rivers lost upon the interpenetrating paths of distant mountains, my strength failing and my vitality exhausted. I cannot find the ox. So this is kind of, you know, where we're looking for something. We're not sure what it is, but we seem, you know, unsatisfied. It represents a stage when we have not started on a spiritual path yet, but we feel somewhat uncomfortable and looking for something more. Okay. And number 2 here. Discovery of the footprints. Along the riverbank under the trees, I discover footprints. Even under the fragrant grass, I see his prints. Deep in remote mountains they are found. These traces can no more be hidden than one's own nose looking heavenward. Okay, so here, this is where we kind of come across, what we believe is going to be the correct path. We see the footprints. In my own story, I would equate this to when I met a friend who was practicing Zen, and he started to tell me about his practice, and I was very intrigued by it and very curious about it, and I wanted to learn more. And so now, back and forth we go. Might be a faster way. Let me try this. See if that gets me there faster. Perceiving the ox. I hear the song of the nightingale. The sun is warm. The wind is mild. Willows are green along the shore. Here no ox can hide. What artist can draw that massive head, those majestic horns? So seeing the ox. So here we're kind of, looking for, what is our best practice going to be? We start seeking out a teacher, some training, and in my own story, this, kind of started out, I kind of went through this path and then I backtracked. But so my first teacher that I met was a man named Dr. Cook, who, and this kind of fits in nicely, wrote a book called How to Raise an Ox. And so my friend who was into Zen introduced me to Dr. Cook, and I practiced with Dr. Cook briefly, and learned a little bit, but ultimately I kind of stalled at what will be our next picture, catching the ox. So, so here we kind of, find out a little more information. Maybe we find a teacher, or some books. We try, try out meditation. This is kind of the beginning. So, on to the next one. I seize him with terrific struggle. His great will and power are inexhaustible. He charges to the high plateau far above the cloud mists, or an impenetrable ravine. In an impenetrable ravine he stands. So here we, start realizing the, the difficulties of our newfound interest. As we're sitting, it's like we realize, oh, wow, this isn't so easy. My mind is all over the place. My knees hurt, my back hurts. This sitting thing isn't all it's cracked up to be. When am I going to get enlightenment? It's difficult. So we're kind of doing some wrestling here. And at this stage, the young Marian, who was practicing with Dr. Cook, gave up the first time around. The second time around, I met Myoto. And I was a little more inspired on the second time around, so I stuck with it longer. So, but I think, as we're going through these phases of ox herding here, it's possible to kind of go back and forth, in our practice. So it's not always, the perfect progression 1 through 10 that we will see here. Okay, the struggle. Taming the ox. The whip and rope are necessary, else he might stray off down some dusty road. Being well trained, he becomes naturally gentle, then unfettered, he obeys his master. So here we're starting to kind of get the hang of it. It's, we're getting used to it. We've learned how to sit in such a way to make ourselves a bit more comfortable. We're a little more focused. Perhaps our mind isn't wandering quite as much. And so we're making some progress. In Martine Batchelor's notes here, she says, the ox holder still holds the rope loosely because he knows that although the fight is over, he must remain vigilant. The ox seems subdued, but it could jump off at any moment. To practice Zen, we have to be confident but aware of not becoming arrogant. We might feel that we know all about Zen, but we still need determination and discipline, as the powers of distractions are strong. For me, this reminds me of a thing that Roshi said to me, which was pretty basic, which was, don't give up. And so, our next picture. Did I skip one? I think I might have. Wait, didn't we see number 6?
Who's Roshi for those of us who might not know him?
Oops, I did skip one. Roshi, I'm referring to Roshi at Desert Zen Center. Roshi Tik and Jiao. Did I say that right, Myoto? Did I pronounce?
Yes, you did.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've done some retreats out at Desert Zen Center. It's a wonderful place. It's out in Lucerne Valley, and the Roshi out there is great. And so, yeah, that was, one piece of advice that he gave to me was just simply don't give up. And so number 6, riding the ox home. Mounting the ox, slowly I return homeward. The voice of my flute intones through the evening, measuring with heartbeats the pulsating harmony. I direct the endless rhythm. Whoever hears this melody will join me. Okay. And so here we realize we can apply our practice to other aspects of our life. I think we're seeing that that Zen practice isn't just, sitting on the cushion, that there's a lot more to it than that. This picture also shows us that there is a place for creativity in Zen. As we accept ourselves and the world, our potential unfolds, fears and insecurities dissolve, and we can express ourselves through music, painting, poetry, cooking, gardening, being with children or old people. Everything we can do can become an art. It is not a duty anymore. It is a way to express our true nature. Okay. The ox transcended. Astride the ox I reach home. I am serene, the ox too can rest. The dawn has come. In blissful repose with my thatched dwelling, I have abandoned the whip and ropes. So here, I think we have, let me read what Martine Batchelor says here. Awareness becomes as natural as breathing. We are at peace with ourselves, our mind, body, and heart, with the whole world. We do not need to try to discipline ourselves because now the practice and the cultivation of the precepts come unheeded. We do not have to do it. It does itself. As Master Kusan used to say, you are one with the question. It is the question that walks, goes to the toilet, looks at the countryside. Harmlessness and generosity come naturally. In this state, you cannot even think of being unkind or telling lies. Those kind of thoughts do not arise. Both ox and self transcended. Whip, rope, person, and ox all merge into no thing. This heaven is so vast, no message can stain it. How may a snowflake exist in a raging fire? Here are the footprints of the ancestors. So, and her comment on this, everything is made up of conditions which are ever changing. There is nowhere to go, nothing to stick to. A great burden is let go of. We feel so light. We realize everything comes out of emptiness. Only because of emptiness can things change and flow. Emptiness is not a vacuum, a black hole, but a possibility of endless transformations. There is no more grasping or self-creating barriers and limitations. The Buddha nature can shine through and express itself fully. So here we have no attainment, no clinging, no avoiding. Reaching the source. Too many steps have been taken returning to the root and the source. Better to have been blind and deaf from the beginning, dwelling in one's true abode, unconcerned with and without. The river flows tranquilly on, and the flowers are red. Let's see. We realize the interdependence which is at the root of all life. As we eat and chew a piece of toast, we connect with the green shoots, the earth, the sun, the rain, and appreciate the efforts of all people who made that piece of toast possible. When we see a blade of grass swaying in the breeze, we are swaying with it. Our life is ordinary and just as it is, but we look at it differently. We realize that everything expresses the truth of life and awareness and is talking to us. We are not locked in on ourselves anymore, but fully open to the world. We are not frightened, but on the contrary, exhilarated. The world is us, and we are the world. All this practice just to realize what was on our very doorsteps. So, yeah, all things have Buddha nature. And our last picture. Return to society. Barefooted and naked of breast, I mingle with the people of the world. My clothes are ragged and dust-laden, and I am ever blissful. I use no magic to extend my life. Now before me, the dead trees become alive. So here we are deeply connected to the world. We feel its suffering and we would want to respond and help. Our bag is full of joy, compassion, understanding, loving kindness, wisdom, and skillful means. We naturally give to ourselves and others what is beneficial. We listen deeply, we observe unobtrusively, and respond appropriately. When we give, we do not expect anything. We are not superior to others when we help them. On the contrary, helping them is like helping ourselves, and we are grateful they give us that opportunity. When we love, it is with total acceptance. We do not help only people we like and who are easy to be with, but also people who are difficult and grumpy. However, we do not force our ideas, our opinions, what works for us on others. We do not take it all so seriously. So here we return our practice to action. So those are the ox herding pictures. Oh, and I'll show you guys this is the book written by my first Zen teacher I encountered in the early 90s, How to Raise an Ox. And there's a cool picture of an ox on the back. any comments or anything you want to share about the ox pictures?
Does
I
anyone
like
have
them.
any questions for Marian?
Which I can try to answer.
I like them. I was thinking how it gonna be applied to us today. You know, like it seems like he goes up in the mountain, finds an ox and stuff like that. And I was like thinking about it in my life, um, how we can sort of apply that, but in a microcosm when we meditate, you know, it's kind of like we're going to the mountains in some aspect, and then we have to go to work, kind of connecting with the world. And you said even helping people that we dislike. I was thinking about how sometimes it's hard to help students who are rude or mean, but it's part of the practice too. So it's like I was thinking about it that way, you know, because I couldn't relate with herding an ox or obviously or going to the mountain for days like that, but I can relate to it, like applying it. I was wondering how you guys thought about it or how you guys were applying it into your lives.
One thought that kind of occurred to me was, and we had this discussion one time about the various, the 6 realms of human existence, you know, um, from God realms to hell realms, and how these are kind of an analogy for, you know, things we experience in our own lives, you know, in our own day-to-day life. You know, life can be hell sometimes, and other times, you know, it can be so wonderful and joyous. And how we kind of, you know, it's not like a progression, but kind of more like a back and forth. And I kind of thought about, you know, these ox herding pictures kind of the same way. I mean, you know, in our practice, some days we have days that are more skillful than others. Some days we're a little more in tune than others. And we kind of go back and forth. We keep trying to go in a forward progression, but sometimes, you know, there's, but it varies, you know. We all have good and bad days, so.
Yeah, the spiritual path is never straightforward. It's never just up the mountain. You know, you're going around the mountain and you got switchbacks and narrow roads and all of this. And Oscar, you said you couldn't really relate to herding an ox or climbing a mountain, but you did that pilgrimage in Spain where you did part of the El Camino path. So you can relate to it. Just, you have to just shift mental gears. I think we can all find something some quest we've gone on, whether it's getting a new job, courting the person that we wanted to marry, going through school, finishing a degree, you know, some goal that we had that we can kind of use this to relate to. But this was more about the spiritual path. And while Marian was giving her excellent talk, I was reminded of a little song that they sing in Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition, which includes Deer Park down in Escondido and Plum Village in France. And I'm not going to sing it because I'm not a good singer, but I will tell you the words. And it goes, there's only 2 verses, there's no chorus, and it goes like this. Happiness is here and now. I've put down my worries. Nowhere to go, nothing to do, so there's no need to hurry. And then the second verse says, happiness is here and now. I've put down my worries. Somewhere to go, something to do, but there's no need to hurry. And that reminds me of the ox herding pictures because of how you come full circle, right? You start off chasing this thing, and then when you catch it, you realize, oh, I don't really need to have a whip and a rope after all. And then you finally come back to where you started, but with a completely different perspective. Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
I think my only other comment is for any of you who have read much Sung San. You know, he talks about, he has, what is the degrees, you know, the 360 degrees, you
The
know.
compass of Zen.
Like, yeah, there you go. So,
Yeah.
you know, I also noticed kind of a parallel there between that and this. So.
Yeah, very much so. Sung San uses a compass to describe our journey in Zen. And again, we end up back where we started because 0 is also 0.360. 0 degrees is also 360 degrees, right? So you have this journey around and all these things happen and you come back right where you started. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The only thing that's changed is us and our perspective to the ox and the marketplace and the rivers and mountains and all of that stuff. Yeah. Thank you, Marian. I think she's bowing, so we'll stop asking her questions, but I'm not letting her off that easily. Does anybody have anything else that they want to ask or share? Anything that came up for you while she was talking that you'd like to share with the group?
While I was watching it, my first thought was, indeed, they're talking about relative reality, if you will. And eventually, as it progressed through the oxes, it reached the point where neither he nor the ox was really there. So it achieved absolute reality. And then at the end, that beautiful glimmer of absolute reality somehow permeated the relative reality once again.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Good catch, Larry, and absolutely spot on. Yeah. Yeah, nicely said.
Yeah, that's a good way to summarize it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I like it.
It is. Because, you know, and here's another thing I like about the ox herding pictures. And I've seen number 10 also called Return to the Marketplace rather than Return to Society. Doesn't really matter. The point is the same. But the fact that, so he's traveled around, starts in relative reality, ventures off into the absolute, and then comes back to the relative. And that's a very important point because it doesn't do anybody else any good if we're off sitting on the mountaintop. At some point, we need to come back to the marketplace and share what we learned. So I think that's an important part of the ox herding journey. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, we're going to sit then for about 5 minutes because that's all the time we have. Then we'll do our closing liturgy. So, and I will be giving a talk next week. So just so that you all know, Marian is going to be giving a talk once a month, and Oscar is going to be giving a talk once a month. Oscar is an ordained priest, and Marian is a novice priest. So this is kind of their training ground so that they can become comfortable with teaching. And Oscar's a professional teacher, so, but comfortable with teaching, public speaking, Dharma talks, answering questions, all that kind of stuff. So I'm very excited about that because it's every teacher's greatest wish that their students outshine them. So I'm hoping that they will be even better than I am. And I'm pretty good, so, you know. All right, let's sit.